My first guest tonight is Andrew Bridgen, MP, who really does need no introduction from me. Andrew has had a very busy week and I'm keen to hear all about it. Andrew, thanks for coming in, joining us once again.
It's a pleasure.
You raised the issue of bank accounts, specifically around Nigel Farage, but...
Yeah, Monday morning, the House doesn't sit till 2:30. I put in for an urgent question, get the Minister to come to the dispatch box. Obviously, we heard what Jeremy Hunt had said about bank accounts. I think it's a matter of huge concern. First of all, they're coming for Nigel Farage's bank account. And to a point, he's got a platform, he's got a position. But then they'll come for somebody else's, and eventually they'll be coming for your viewers' bank accounts at this rate. And the problem was that the Speaker's panel decided that wasn't worthy of note and discussion, and no minister came to the dispatch box to answer questions. How
can that be when every person, every functioning adult is united by one thing, if nothing else, and that's the necessity of a bank account?
I can't think of anything that's more set to cancel someone in our modern society than not having access to a bank account and banking facilities. You really can't function as a human being.
How do you read that unwillingness, that refusal to
well, I've seen what Nigel's bank has said in its defence for cancelling his bank account, that he didn't meet the criteria, but that doesn't explain why 9 other banks wouldn't open an account for him. And quite honestly, as an MP for the Reclaim Party, I mean, for 3 years, a fully authorised political party with the Electoral Commission, and we haven't been able to have a bank account that we can put donations and memberships into.
It's alarming, is it not, Julie?
It's dystopian. It's the kind of stuff that would have been written about by George Orwell and that we never thought could happen. As you say, without a bank account, you don't exist. So to take someone's right away, as you say, to transact, if they want a cashless society, then you need a bank account. If you take that away, how do you transact? How do you even live?
This has been going on for years. You know, and you know, for example, you know, Tommy Robinson, Katie Hopkins, they lost their accounts in this.
I've also been told this week of 4 former Brexit Party MEPs who've lost their bank account.
Ought we to have spoken up earlier? Because the lesson from history is always, you know, it's not about the identity, nor indeed the views of the people that are being discriminated against. It's the discrimination itself that you want to go after. Should we all have been more...
I think we should always defend the freedoms of people we don't necessarily agree with. And obviously Nigel, for some people, is a Marmite politician. But if you don't defend Nigel's right for a bank account, who's going to defend yours?
And, you know, a shortage of time and all of the rest of it. There was much more of that in your week.
Yes, I went out to Brussels and addressed a meeting in the European Parliament on Tuesday. I was invited over. There is a procedure in the EU Parliament where they have 7 citizens and 7 MEPs and they can raise an issue. It's not been used very often, but that was the procedure we were using. And I got to give a speech and, you know, it was never on my bucket list, but I did get a standing ovation in the EU Parliament. But having led Leave for the East Midlands on a successful campaign, it wasn't what I was expecting. But, Neil, we're living in strange times.
It's very interesting, given that I have watched, as I'm sure Julie has watched you address basically an empty chamber in the Mother of Parliaments in Westminster. And yet, what was the flavour in that chamber? As you were all, not just you, but all of you...
There was a large number of individuals in there and politicians from across Europe who appreciate that the WHO are putting in for a massive power grab of our sovereignty with their post-pandemic treaty and also the changes to the international health regulations, which we still aren't debating in our Parliament, and I'm very suspicious that we're not even going to get a vote on because it's an amending an existing treaty, and they're both equally toxic for our sovereignty.
Julie, do you feel that when it comes to, well, what's called the mainstream media, that there's enough coverage of this? You know, that the WHO amended treaty, as Andrew has said, proposes it's a power grab.
They'll be able to declare a public health emergency of international concern, seize powers, and they'll also decide when it's over. And as you know, even from COVID-19, they only declared it was over a few months ago. I think we're still in the monkeypox one, so that would still be going on.
Do you feel I mean, I don't feel we hear about it.
No, we
in
don't.
The channels.
No, we don't. And I think since the pandemic, they've sneakily done it, haven't they? To the point that a lot of people think, well, they know best, but they clearly don't, and that's the worrying thing.
Well, they won't even have a review into the decisions and the guidance they gave in the last pandemic. So they think that was all perfect. Lockdowns, mandatory vaccines, mRNA technology. They can do no wrong. I think most of the public will disagree that it was fairly badly handled.
When you look at that in the round, you know, you're talking about what's happening with bank accounts, and to some extent with the WHO. It seems to me that this is the Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum's stakeholder capitalism made real.
If you look, it's baffling enough that it's going on in our parliament and no one wants to talk about it. But when you actually widen out and look, it's happening in all the parliaments around the world at the same time. You've got to ask questions, and it is to the playbook, isn't it?
Julie, how do you think that we as regular punters should be responding to all of this?
I think we should be talking about it more, but as you say, as we spoke about before, it's very difficult when we're being distracted with so many other news stories, which are there clearly to deflect this. I also think that when you do query something like that post-pandemic, you're thrown in with so many other labels, such as, oh, you're an anti-vaxxer, or you're anti-trans, or whatever other sort of things are being bandied about at the moment. As we say, that's a distraction. It's almost as if you dare question it, you are then thrown to the wolves as whatever label you're then given, and that's why we can't have a debate about it.
Andrew, you also spoke, recently about trying to take action to make parents be kept informed about what's happening to their children.
Yes, I put forward last week, the week before last, a 10-minute rule motion to bring in a bill to outlaw the social transitioning of children in schools before they're of age of majority, and also that parents had to be informed if that was happening, and also to reinforce the rules that are already there, that parents should have a right to see the material that children are being taught in school regard to sex education. And unfortunately, the Conservative Party decided to tell their MPs not to vote for it. In fact, I think 11 of them voted against it, with some Labour MPs, and that bill went down. And I had a policeman in Parliament came up to me privately this week and was shaking with tears and said, "What's gone wrong with this country? We don't even protect our children anymore."
We have to get to another break.